Hi everyone, today we're going to show you guys how to do the installation of our third Gen Tacoma Direct Replacement rear bumper on this truck we have here in the shop today. Now our Direct Replacement rear bumper has a receiver hitch integrated into it, so we need to start by removing this entire assembly off the truck. Receiver hitch and bumper all comes off together, and we're going to get started with showing you guys how to do that. So the first thing we need to start with is disconnecting a couple of the electrical connectors behind the bumper. First one is the trailer plug hit connection. There's a big round plug there, and then two other plugs next to it for all the wiring inside the bumper. So we're going to show you which ones to disconnect. So this one here is for the trailer plug. There is a squeeze on the top that you want to squeeze down real hard and pull back on that. And then these two here are for the wiring harnesses that go into the bumper. You'll need to squeeze this clip on the gray one, and then on the black one here, there's a little small one that's hard to see. Squeeze down and pull back on that one. Once those are disconnected, next thing is going to be just these receiver hitch bolts here. So there's 5 on each side. You're going to use a 17mm socket to remove all of those bolts from each side, and then the whole bumper and hitch assembly will be ready to take off the truck. So one thing to note before you pull the bumper off the back, the receiver hitch has 2 little safety pins that go into the side of the frame, and you'll have to lift the bumper straight up first and then slide it back to get those pins out of the slots in the frame. We'll show you where those are at real quick. They're right up, all the way up inside the frame here. There's this metal pin, and it has to go up and then straight back for the receiver and the bumper to come off. So we now have our bumper on the bench here, and we're ready to start disassembling it so we can get a couple things out. Now, if your rear bumper is not equipped with park sensors and you're not going to be reusing them in the new bumper, then there really isn't anything that you have to take apart here other than pulling out this trailer connector for the wiring. You just pull this plug out of the bumper by squeezing these 2 metal clips here, and then it'll pop out of the bumper, and you can clip this into the new bumper. Now, the one other thing to note is that you will need a power source for your license plate light on the new bumper. If you're not disassembling this whole setup to take this wiring harness out, you're going to need to pull power from probably one of these trailer plug wires that comes off of this plug here of the wiring harness that's on the truck right now. You can pull power from there to get to your license plate light on the new bumper if you wish to do it that way. Otherwise, you're going to want to proceed with taking everything apart here so that you can get this wiring harness out. So this entire setup needs to be disassembled. There are different plastic panels and stuff that have to come off in order to get to the park sensors and get the wiring harness out of the bumper. So the first thing we're going to start with is these original license plate lights also need to come out. So you have to squeeze together these 2 tabs from backside behind the plastic to pop those out of the holes. And then there are a bunch of plastic clips around the bottom here, 3 on each side there, 1 on this black portion on each side, and then 1 in the center here behind your license plate. So you'll have to make sure you take your license plate off to get that clip. Now those ones, you just put a small flathead screwdriver in there, pop the top of it up, and then pull the clip out. So we got all of our little round clips off from the bottom of these panels, the one out of the center of the license plate here, and then these couple down on the bottom. We also just completely unplugged our license plate lights and pulled those out of the bumper. Next thing we need to do is take this plastic cover off this whole middle black piece. So this one has a bunch of square plugs that just pop into the metal plate beneath. So we're just going to use a flathead screwdriver, a large size one, to slide in from the back here to get underneath this plastic panel, and you're just going to pry up on it. So once that piece breaks loose, your park sensors are still plugged in under here, so just be careful not to pull on it too hard. You'll want to go ahead and unplug those park sensors so that the wiring is disconnected, and then you can take this plastic piece away from the bumper. All right, we got our center plastic panel off, and now we're working on these corner pieces. So there's a couple more clips around the inside here. We have two of these round black plastic ones that you pop at the top and pull out of that hole. There's another one up here, that this metal little like alligator clip thing, you kind of have to use a really small flathead to get in there and pry those teeth apart and wiggle that clip off the back. And then there's also two more flat plastic tabs that are connected to this piece that pop in from the front here. You can access those from the back. If you're worried about breaking them, you can reach in there and pop that clip up. It's just a little flat tab you need to lift up, and then this panel can come off the bumper. And that, again, just note your park sensor is mounted inside that plastic panel. So as it comes off, you're going to want to unplug that wiring harness so you don't damage the sensor or any of the wiring. Okay, so we have our plastic covers off the bumper. Now we're going to continue working on getting our wiring harness out of the bumper. This bumper is also equipped with a blind spot monitor system. Our aftermarket bumper does not accept that sensor setup. It doesn't fit and does not work within a steel bumper, so we don't have provisions for that. So this sensor will not get reused, but we do need to take it out to make it easier to get this wiring harness out of the bumper. So there are just 3 nuts here. You'll use a 10mm socket for those to take this sensor out, and then you can get to all of the little clips that hold the wiring harness behind that area. So to get these wires, all the harness moved out, we can just you got to take these little black plastic clips and squeeze the sides together so that they'll come out of this bumper structure, and then you can get your wiring harness out. So this bumper obviously has a lot of dirt and grime inside of it, so we're kind of struggling to get things disconnected here. But you'll just want to work your way across through the rest of the bumper, getting all those plastic clips and getting your wiring harness out of the bumper. Okay, so we have our wiring harness completely removed from this whole bumper section here. We just worked our way along, squeezing those little black clips to pull the harness out from the back side of the bumper. Now this whole structure, you won't need anything else from this. You can put that aside. The next thing we need to do is get our park sensors removed from our plastic panels. So there's 1 in each corner piece here, and then 2 in that center black one that we took out earlier. So you just need to come in here and squeeze these little flat pieces. They're pretty flexible, but there's 3 of them, all the way around, and you squeeze those together and just kind of work it out of the hole and push it through the panel as you're squeezing those together. Okay. So once you get all the clips squeezed together and you get it worked out of the hole, you kind of have to turn it, rotate it 90 degrees to get it all the way out. And you just want to be careful with these to not drop them or trying not to break that plastic clip housing that's surrounding the sensor, because you need to reuse that to clip them into our new bumper. So we have our new bumper up on the workbench now. We're getting ready to put our wiring harness inside and our park sensors in the bumper. We're going to start with setting the wiring harness in place, and the only thing you're going to use on this harness is the two connectors for the park sensors, and then you'll need to use one of these for wiring up the license plate light later on. You want to make sure that your wiring harness is oriented properly and that you don't have it in there swapped 180 degrees. So earlier, you'll remember these two big plugs that we used to disconnect the harness. These need to be on the driver's side of the bumper so that they will plug back in when you get the bumper on the truck. So we're just going to take this harness and set it up sort of on top of these little notches in the frame mounting plate here, and it'll fit there and ride like that once we get the bumper in. And you just want to lay it in place and kind of get your plugs for the park sensors, get them close to the holes where the sensors will be coming through the bumper. So we're going to take all of our park sensors and get them put into the bumper. We don't want to fully clip them in yet. We're just going to kind of put the plug through the holes in the bumper because it's easier to line up the wiring harness and plug them in before these are actually fully clipped into position. But you'll see in these little park sensor holes that there's just a little notch in the round part. So that notch you want to line up with, you want to orient the plug portion of the sensor towards that notch. So you'll put it in just like this, and when it gets into place, it'll be able to rotate into that notch and clip into the bumper. So we have all of our park sensors installed into the bumper. We've plugged in our wiring harness to those sensors, and now we're moving on to the license plate light. So we provide a light with the bumper, and then we also send a pair of Phillips panhead screws with nylock nuts and some little washers there to install that light. You want to make sure that it's easiest on this bumper, since the wiring harness is already in the truck, or in the bumper I mean, to go ahead and snip off one of these connectors that was for the original license plate light, and then you can strip back the coating on these two wires, and then they'll be ready to connect to your license plate light once you install it. Now, we don't send any butt connectors or any kind of special plugs or anything for that, because there are various ways to wire that together. It's just kind of your choice what you'd like to use there. And then just so you know, these on the Toyota wiring harness here, the green wire is ground and the white with black stripe is the hot wire. So you'll want to connect your lights, the wires that are on the light. You want to take your red wire, connect it to white with black stripe, black wire, connect it to the green wire on the wiring harness. So we have our license plate light here ready to go in. We have our wires stripped back. Just kind of a helpful tip, we take the wires from the wiring harness and pull them through the back of the bumper first. So you want to make sure your wires go through this center hole here, because these two outer holes are for the screws for the light. So we pull our wires through so that we can make our connections right here, get our wiring done, and then pull them back through the back of the bumper and install your screws and nuts to hold the light into the bumper. Our license plate light is now all wired up and ready to go. Now, if you're installing aftermarket reverse lights into your bumper, we're going to show you how those go right now. So we offer a couple different options on our website right now. We have Extreme LED and Baja Designs brand lights that we sell, and Rigid Industries lights will also fit into our bumper. Now, the way our bumper, or the cutout is designed in our bumper where the lights go, it's made to fit those multiple styles of lights. So there's the rigid ones are the only ones that cover the whole pattern inside the bumper. And for the other two brands, the Extreme LED and Baja Designs, we send these little trim plates to go with the light depending on which one you're using. So This one here with the 2 holes is for the extreme LED. You're going to want to put these on the light first before you put the light in the hole, because this extra trim portion here will cover the other 4 holes that are in the bumper, to make sure that you can't see them from the outside. So of course you want to make sure these are powder coated as well before you put them on, but they'll go on to the back of the light, and then you can put your hardware through the light and the trim ring and then put it into your bumper. So we're just finishing up a couple items inside the bumper here to get it ready to put on the truck. One of the last things we have to do is just take our trailer wiring plug and clip that into the bumper, so it goes inside here from the front of the bumper and then just clips right into that opening. And then the other thing that we've done is we've gone through and taken our whole wiring harness and used some cable ties to wrap around the receiver hitch tube here, and just kind of bundle up our wires and keep them in place so they stay inside the bumper real nice. And with all that stuff finished up, your bumper is ready to go onto the truck. So we've got our bumper all ready to go on the truck. We're using the original bolts that came out of the receiver hitch, those 10 bolts total that we removed earlier, and we added it's a 1/2 inch flat washer to each one of those. We provide those washers with the hardware kit. So you want to put one of those flat washers onto each one of the original hitch bolts, and those are ready to install. So then you just need to get someone to help you lift your bumper into place and get all the bolts started and threaded into the holes to hold the bumper in position. So we have our bumper on the truck now. We've gone ahead and adjusted it so we have a nice even reveal around the taillight area here and then down the side of the truck as well. You just want to make sure those gaps look even and that your bumper isn't twisted or turned in any odd direction. And once those are just kind of sitting how you want it, go ahead and just tighten down 2 of those receiver hitch bolts on each side to kind of lock the bumper in place and hold it where it looks best. And then we're going to show you that there are a couple of optional holes that can be drilled. We're going to put the truck up on the lift and get inside there to show you where those holes are at. But essentially there's 2 3/8 holes on each side that can be drilled. Our frame mounting plates already have the holes in them. You just need to drill through the frame of the truck. The purpose for these is to keep your bumper locked in position so that it doesn't twist at all. If you're pulling a heavy trailer and using this receiver hitch that's built into the bumper, the hitch is now higher and it puts a little more stress on toe and drop hitches and everything, and it can actually kind of twist the bumper a little bit on the bolts even when the bolts are tightened all the way down. So those 2 extra 3/8 bolts that we drill holes for are just to ensure that the bumper gets locked in place and stays exactly where you want it to be. All right, we have our truck up on the lift here. We're going to show you underneath the bumper where those 2 optional holes are to drill. So you can see right in here on our bumper, the frame plate that's welded into the bumper has a 3/8 hole right here, and then there's another one right here. So you can go ahead and drill through the frame, through those 2 holes, and install the 3/8 bolts, washers, and lock washers that are provided with it. Now, this hole in the back might be kind of hard to get to with a drill. If you have a small electric drill, they are pretty short nowadays, and you can get a smaller drill bit. You may be able to fit it up inside the bumper and drill right through. But if you cannot get in there, we recommend just marking those 2 holes with a marker, and then you'll have to just slide your bumper back off, drill the holes, put the bumper back on the truck. You can do it that way, which is why we recommended only tightening down a couple bolts on each side earlier on in the video. So once you drill those or mark your holes, you can take the bumper off if you need to, drill them out, put it back on, and then get your 3/8 bolts put into those holes first, along with the rest of your bolts, and then you can go ahead and tighten everything down. The large bolts that go into the receiver hitch can be tightened to 85 foot-pounds, and then these 3/8 bolts that you put in additionally can go down to 35 foot-pounds. So our bolts are all tightened down for the bumper. Everything's secure and in place. We just have to finish up a couple things with the wiring harness underneath the truck. The main one being that we need to get this trailer plug to reach over to the plug that's in the bumper here to get it to plug in. So we have to move the connector over a little ways in our bumper, so we need to get some more length out of the wiring harness. There's a few places where that harness is clipped into the frame underneath the truck here. You just have to push those clips out and pull the harness and stretch it back so that it can be plugged in. We're going to show you where those clips are at. So you're going to come all the way up here, closer to the fuel tank here. There's this metal bracket right there. You'll push this clip out. There's another one up there inside that cross member for the spare tire. Push that one through the frame. And then moving back, there's another one about right in here on this halfway point in the frame. And then this one right here. So if you pop all of those clips up out of the frame, then you should be able to get enough length out of that harness to plug in your trailer plug. And also while you're in there working on the wiring, don't forget the 2 plugs for your entire wiring harness that's inside the bumper. There's the gray one and the black one there. Don't forget to plug those in as well. So one of the final things you need to do is put together your flip-up license plate bracket holder. So these come with the bumper. There's 2 pieces and some hardware that come with that. This piece here is the one that bolts to the bumper, and then this one with these larger flat tabs on it is the piece that your license plate attaches to. So you're going to use a 1/4-inch button head bolt with the flat washer on the outside. The license plate piece goes inside the one that mounts to the bumper, and then you're going to put this nylon washer in between the 2. So the washer goes in between so that you can adjust your tightness of how easily that flips, and then you put another flat washer on the inside with your nylock nut. So you can go ahead and put both sides together and then tighten them down so there's a little bit of pressure on that, so that your license plate, you actually have to pull up on it to lift it up to get to your receiver hitch, and then it will stay there in place where you want it. So we're going to attach our flip-up license plate mount to these 2 bolts that are welded into the bumper here. Just goes right on like that, and then you want to put your flat washer and lock nut onto those 2 bolts that are welded in. And you can go ahead and tighten down those bolt nuts there, and then you can attach your license plate to this piece here. We provide 2 1/4-inch button head bolts with flat washers and lock nuts to attach your license plate to the bracket. Once your license plate is installed, just one final thing to note: if you do have aftermarket reverse lights that you installed, go ahead and get those wired as well. And once that's complete, double check your hardware and everything, make sure it's all tight and all your wiring connections and everything are plugged in. And with that, your rear bumper installation is complete.